Before we create our users, we're going to need a fresh install of Django-wiki. So let's make a start. Let's create a virtual environment, which we're going to call VNV. And whilst that's creating, that created ever so quickly there, let's now /vnv/scripts/activate. So creating a activate. So creating a virtual environment here, which is best practice whenever we're starting a new Django project. We're activated now. That's fantastic. The next thing we're going to do is get our installation of Django-wiki. And to do that, if we go to the docs here and click install, it tells us to pip install wiki, but we're not going to do that because that generates an unsupported operand type error. It's this error right here. So if you search for this Django-wiki unsupported operand types, Django-wiki discussions, and then scroll down to unsupported operand types for frozen set and list, this will give you a direct link to a GitHub repository where you can pip install that to then get started with the Django project. So off we go. Now, whilst that's going on, if we go back to the docs again, right here, and scroll down, you'll see we have to copy and paste a few things into settings.installed settings.installed apps and settings and the templates section in settings as well. So what we'll do is we'll grab this right now so that as soon as we've pip installed and as soon as the project's ready, we can go ahead and do that. So you see there, we're going through the process now. So as soon as this is ready, we're going to go ahead and create a project. And once that project's been created, then we can add some stuff to our settings and to urls.py to actually make this behave as a wiki. Now, at the moment, we're downloading Django along with a whole bunch of other things, but this is now a fresh Django installation. So now Django-admin start project, and then let's call this new wiki. That will start our project for us. And we can see now that we've got new wiki right here, and we could just run this as is. But before we do that, we're going to go into settings.py, and we're going to add the things which actually creates this into a wiki. So underneath installed apps, we're going to copy and paste this. Let's just have this across to make it look a little bit nicer. And then let's also copy and paste this new template section in to enable us to render templates which are wiki friendly. So this entire installation here exists in VNV. If we went down to lib, we would see all of this stuff, and right at the very bottom here, you can actually see this wiki file here where all of the stuff exists which enables this wiki to work. But we've still got to copy and paste a few things into settings.py as well. Now here it tells us now we need to manage manage.py migrate. So let's Python manage.py and then migrate. So let's do that. And then oopsie daisy, that means we got to cd into new wiki first because that was our project. So let's go up and do that again. And whilst that's migrating successfully now. We also need to specify in settings site ID equals 1, and then these two user account handling settings as well, which enable accounts to be created and for us to administer accounts too. So first of all, let's take this site ID variable. We'll go right down to the bottom of the page. Oops, right down to the bottom of the page here, and we'll paste that in there. Might as well save while we're going, and we'll take these two as well. And we shall paste them, copy and paste them into there. And then we'll also go back and get this for urls.py as well. So copy in that and then straight back up to, we don't need that open anymore because we're not messing with that today, urls.py. And we'll just copy and paste that straight into there and save. Now at this point, this is all now ready to behave like a wiki. And you can see here that the root path is being directed to wiki.urls, which is where all of the wiki related stuff is. So let's go and take a look at that as is without actually creating any users whatsoever. So Python manage.py and then run server. Okay, so the server's now running. And so if we were to create a new tab and then have a look at localhost, we can now see that in fact we're all there. So we can click here to try and log in. Or we could sign up as well. Now, let's say we were to sign up right now. Well, what that would give us is just a random user which was incapable of doing anything because it wouldn't have permissions to do anything because it's not a super user. But nonetheless, let's do that and just see how that looks. So let's just sign up. And I've done this once before. So let's have test user 1. let's have a random meaningless email address. Random@things.com works nicely. And then as a password, let's have a very secure, not just secure, let's have a very secure password. So very secure password, right? Very secure, fantastic. And sign up. And we are now signed up, so we can now sign in. Let's sign in with a very, I can't even spell that right, very secure password. Off we go. And we're now being logged in. As you can see, we have Django-wiki installed and it seems to be working, but there are no articles yet. And because we're not a super user, we can't create any articles. Anyway, our first user has been created. All right. Account settings up here basically allows us to change our password and our email address. That is all it allows us to do, but that's all we can do. We are not a super user yet, so we can't do anything else. So let's go back to the console. And now let's have Python manage.py and create superuser. Create superuser. Off we go. So we're now going to create a superuser, which we're going to call admin. And no email address. And the password is just going to be password. Because, oh, did I even spell that right? Password's going to be password because we are super secure. It's going to give me a warning in a second because that is no good. We are going to say, yep, we want that anyway. So now we've created our super user. Okay, so now we have one super user and one regular user. Let's go and see how that looks. And in order to do that, we're going to leave test user logged in, and we're going to send test user back to the home page, and you leave test user logged in if it allows us to do that. And it's not going to allow us to do that because we've got to restart our server. So let's restart our server there. There we go. And if we refresh this, right, we're now logged in. Fantastic. Let's move this across to one side now, and then we'll Control Alt and P. Am I doing Control Alt and P? Is that what I'm doing? How do you create a private page? Oh, Control Shift and P. There you go. Control Shift P to create a private tab right there, and we'll leave that right there. And now let's go here and see if we can log in with our created super user. Right. So let's log in, and we're going to go admin and then password. And now that we're logged in as a super user, we have the option to create the first article or to read the documentation. Now, if you click here, we'll in fact go to read the docs, which is where we were before, but we don't want to go there. We just want to go ahead and create an article. So let's create an article. So best welcome article ever. This is the best welcome article ever. It's absolutely fantastic. And why don't we give ourselves a heading, welcome, and then you are lucky to be here. And then let's give ourselves a heading 2 as well. Here is why, and maybe just a list. So let's have a list. It is Friday, and that's always a good thing. Number 2, fish and chips tonight. And number 3, Django is cool. Fantastic. So let's create our root article. So our root article is now been made here, and we are free to edit this as we so choose. So this being the case, let's now go back and see what our other user can see. So test user 1, let's just save these changes. So test user 1 at this point, if we refresh test user 1's page, they're at the default missing root page. So let's send them to the regular page. See, they can now see our article. And in fact, user 1, who created themselves, remember, is now capable of editing this article. So if user 1 were to click edit, I could put user 1 was here. So user 1 has stamped their mark on this article right here. Now, and if I were to go back to the root here, so let's leave this page, go back to root, I can see that user 1 have done whatever they've done. And what's nice is that I can click here and I can see the change that user 1 has made. Now, one quick thing I can do to prevent user 1 from being cheeky is I can go to settings, and then I could in fact lock the article and deny all access to users to edit this article. So let's save that and see how that looks. And then we'll get around to creating a second user in a second in a different way. So now user 1 no longer has permission to view the source of this article, or to edit the article. They can view the source. Another thing they can do is they can determine what notifications they get as a result of this article being edited at the fake email address that I put in earlier, but they can't actually edit the article. All they can do is view and maybe copy the source. So how about now we go back into settings. Let's allow all users access to the article, but why don't we do this? Why don't I take away the user's access to do to even read the article? So I'm not going to allow them to read, and I'm not going to allow them to write. So let's save changes and see what that does. See, now I'm so fed up of user 1's tomfoolery that I'm going to stop them from even editing the article, and they don't even have permission to do that. So I've decided that I'm going to let that slide now, save, and I'm now going to allow them to edit the article as well if they behave themselves. And user 1 was here, I will behave myself. All right, so user 1 is going to behave themselves. They've seen the threat of the ban hammer, and that's fine. So if I go back here, there's the promise from user 1 that they will behave themselves. Now, as a super user, I have access to admin. So if I go to this address right here, so the root of my project /admin, I'm already logged in here because I was logged into the main site. I can now look and view all of the users which exist at the moment. So there's test user 1. And I'm now free to go ahead and create another user if I so choose. So let's click add user. Let's create another user. Let's have test user 2. And let's give them another password, which is very secure. Oh, very secure. There we go. Hopefully they match now. So save. And then we should now have a second user who is also able to log in as well. So just to test that that's the case, let's log out of here as test user 1. So test user 1 is going to log out, and let's log in with test user 2. So test user 2, and the password should be very secure because that's what all passwords should be. And now we're test user 2. And now if I go ahead and edit this article, so let's have user 2 is in the building. So user 2 is now here and stamping their mark on the place. So if I go back here now and have a look at changes, I can see that, oh, yep, user 2's been in there and user 2's messing with the article as well. So now we have a bit of a situation because now we have 2 users, and I guess one thing that we could do is we could stop both users from editing the articles if we wanted, all the users if we wanted to, or we could just stop one user, which could work as well. So if we save changes here, so this is stopping anyone from reading or writing. So now if we refresh this, sorry, you don't have permission to access this page, and let's now give them permission to read. So now user 2 has access to read but not to write. But what if we want to treat these 2 users differently? Well, if we go back to settings, you'll notice that here it mentions group. There's something about groups going on here. Okay, and it talks about group read access and group write access as well. So why don't we try to apply a group now? Let's go back to admin and let's create a group. So we're going to go to groups right here. At the moment, there are no groups. Let's add a group. And let's have a group called test group. Oh, not test grop, but test group. Okay. Let's save that. So test group is now saved. And as you can see, you have a whole bunch of permissions which I can add to groups. I'm not actually going to add any of those permissions to my group at the moment. I'm literally just going to save. And I'm going to go to users. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put test user 1 into this test group because I kind of trust them a little bit more than the other user. So I've added test group to user 1 and saved. And now what I can do is I can go back to here. I'll have to refresh the page in order to be able to see that there's actually a group there. So test group is now a thing. And what I can do is click that. And why don't I allow others to read the page, but I'm going to allow only those in test group, only those in the test group, which is user 1. They're going to be allowed to read and write to the page. So test user 2, who isn't in a group, will only be allowed to read it, but test user 1, who is in the group, should be able to read and write. Let's see if that's worked. So save. And now, if we refresh the page, we can see that our test user 2 still can't see things. Let's just see if we could actually block them like this as well. So why don't we actually remove their read access as well? We know that's going to work, but let's remove their read access just to, I guess, make the contrast more stark, right? So their permission is now completely denied for that root page, which stinks for them. So let's log out and log in as test user 1 now with a very secure password. And now logged in, and you can see that test user 1 has full rights to edit the page. Test user 1 was here and is still here. Bad luck. Test user 2. Okay, so that page has now been edited by test user 1. If I refresh my page, I should be able to see the changes, so I can see that test user 1 has just edited that. But test user 2 still wasn't able to see that page at all. And that's because of the group that we assigned to test user 1, and we said that that page was only allowed to be viewable by people in test group. So we've seen two different ways to add users. Users can add themselves. We log out here. Users can add themselves by signing up. Users can be added using the admin. And I guess I'll just show one more thing while we're here as well. And that's if we go back to settings.py, you can see here that we've got wiki account handling and wiki account sign up allowed. If I were to go false here, I think this will work. So, oops, not like that though. If I'm going to say false, there we go. So I'm going to say false. So wiki account sign up is now no longer allowed. Now I believe that if I refresh the page, there's no longer now a sign up option. So new users can no longer sign up, which would mean that I would be able to control everything that goes on my page through the admin. So no one's getting in without me adding them, which is great. Let's change that back to true, just so you can see that that was the thing that was actually making the difference. So let's go to there again, refresh the page, and now you can see that the sign up option is back there.